Okay, so we covered the first few lecture slides in Google advertising, talked about the search engine, talked about the bidding model. So if you missed that, please do go back and refresh. That's not included in the lecture capture. So, talk about Google's basic ad model. So, Google puts ads on two different kinds of sites. Okay, number one, its own sites or close subsidiaries or partners, whatever. So example, YouTube, right, which is under the same ownership umbrella Alphabet that owns Google. So those guys, they're close partners. The other one is third-party sites, sites with which Google has no close affiliation. So think some random unemployed blogger writes a blog, says to Google, hey, you can put ads on my blog pages. And Google says, yeah, okay. All right, so that split is reflected in Google's two main models for advertising. AdWords is for ads that run along typically with search results. Adsense is for third-party content, right? So Google tries to put an ad in those pages that roughly matches the content of the page as far as Google can. Now, before we get into that, ads, you can bid to have your ads get a better placement on a page. Basically, if you offer, Google looks at your ad and says, this ad isn't good, we're not getting a lot of clicks on it, you know, we're not going to run it in the best spot, but the advertiser says, okay, look, I know we're not getting as many clicks as the other guys, but we'll give you a shopping cart full of money. We'll pay twice as much when anybody clicks on the ad. And Google says, yeah, okay, we'll take that. Okay? So for ads, you can always bid higher to get a better position. But for ordinary search results, you cannot. Search results are pure. They cannot be bought by advertisers. If you have your site is, say, Target.com, you know, and it shows up fourth in the listings for some product, there's nothing Target can do directly with Google. Can't give Google more money to boost its ordinary search listing to number one. Can try to redesign its site. It can do that to try to do better, but it can't just give Google money. Okay? Search results are pure. So, first one we'll talk about AdWords. So, with AdWords, advertisers pay for ad placement with associated search terms or groups of terms. And typically, they're affected by search term relevance and advertiser bids. So relevance is just basically a category matching. The ad is about this kind of product. The user is searching for this kind of product. To the extent that those two are pretty close, that has high relevance, right? So, for example, if right now I look for, restaurants downtown Chicago, and there's an ad for the Giordano's just across the street, that would have pretty high relevance, right? It's a lunch spot, it's a restaurant, it's in downtown Chicago, right? Whereas an ad for bicycle sprockets would have low relevance, okay? The other thing is advertiser bids. So the advertiser is basically the typical model. The advertiser is going to promise Google so much money per click on the ad. That's what the bid is. So if the advertiser says, we'll pay you $1 a click, that's going to be better. Google's going to want to show that ad more than an advertiser who, say, bid $0.25 a click or 50 cents a click. Okay? Does that make sense? Those are the two things. All right. Now, over time, AdWords has been around for about 20 years now. A lot more businesses are using it. So the basic outcome of that, it's driven up costs a lot. Key reason is you can't share space at the top. So maybe 20 years ago, even for a fairly popular set of search terms like, restaurants downtown Chicago, maybe there are only a couple restaurants bidding on that set of search terms, right? 20 years ago. But now, there could be a lot of restaurants bidding on that. But still, there's only one best spot on the page. You can't share that space. So, they have to bid higher to get that one. Over time as well, free Google Analytics. So Google Analytics is basically the software for tracking what people do on your website, typically looking at the different channels they arrive from, like what ads they click on, and how likely that those site visitors are to buy stuff. So, more Google Analytics users has led over time to more potential AdWords users. That was one of the prime reasons for Google to make this Google Analytics software free, is so that all the companies that are advertising with AdWords could see what value they were getting from it. So, consequences, number one, best way to improve your search rank listing is to improve your site design, right? Make it very clear that your site is about this particular topic. Other thing, you can link your site, you can redesign your site to make your ads appear better. For whatever you can do to make it more likely that users click on the ads and make it more likely that users stay on your site long enough to buy something, If you can do that, that's all going to make your ads appear better to Google. It's going to boost up their quality score. Okay? Yeah.
So AdWords are essentially just, I guess, things users look for, and if that ad pops up and if it's relevant, then they get money.
The AdWords is a platform, right? AdWords is a platform that Google manages and basically tells the advertisers, look, you tell us how much you're going to bid for a click and maybe tell us what search terms you want your ad to be shown along with. And if your ad appears to be bringing in more money than some other ad, we'll run your ad in the best spot on the page. Okay? That's what AdWords is. So AdWords is ads displayed along with Google's search results. Again, some other close affiliates like YouTube, but it's easiest to think about it in terms of search terms. Okay, so a little bit of history. IDEA originated in 2000, actually outside of Google. And I'm not saying Google stole it, but they did pay money to get people to stop saying that Google stole it. So, yeah. But this is pretty common in the tech world. I don't know how much of this you guys are aware of. Did you know that Microsoft didn't design Windows? Yeah, they outsourced it. They said they contacted some other outfit and said, hey, why don't you design a user interface that does this and this and this? And that company did it, and that became the core of the first version of Windows. So, yeah, Microsoft didn't even build it. They didn't steal it, right? They paid for the service. But, yeah, it seems kind of bad. It's like the dude who posed for the picture of Uncle Ben's rice. They paid him like, $20 back in the day, which is probably the equivalent of like $100 now. But they've been using him as an advertising icon for like 100 years. Anyway, what happened a lot of times in these tech years, a lot of it wasn't outright theft. A lot of it was kind of like what happened in the social network. Well, so what you sometimes happen is a bunch of dudes get together after work and they're just kicking around some ideas, and one guy say, oh yeah, we're doing something like this, and they have vague terms about it, right? Not revealing all the special sauce, but then the other guy says, oh yeah, that's a good idea, we could make that work, and then they run with it inside their own business, okay? Or people leave one firm and they say, oh, you cannot work on this kind of project. And so sure, the new employer, say Google, doesn't actually bring them in on that new project, but you know that the various, tech people are like cornering the guy in the hall and say, hey, we got this problem. What do you think we should do about that? Right? So yeah, there's a lot of, maybe not exactly theft, but close enough. Okay. Anyway, AdWords isn't the only business like this, the only business that shows ads along with search results. There were a bunch of others in the late 90s, early 2000s. Most of them didn't survive the dot-com bust. But nowadays, the one that you guys might see is Bing, which is lately doing a reasonably good job. It's about, 20% as big as Google these days. So that's pretty good. I wish I were 20% as big as Google. That'd be great. All right. Anyway, AdWords is currently Google's main revenue source. Roughly 75% of their revenue comes from AdWords. And we have here what is called a virtuous cycle. A virtuous cycle means that because things are good now, they're going to keep getting better in the future. So what happens, Google can pick ads with high quality, right? Ads that are likely to be clicked on and bring in Google some more money. So high ad quality leads to high revenues. Because Google has more revenues, it can spend more money reinvesting in systems to make the ads perform even better. Okay? That's what Google does. The other thing, it's extensible. So the AdWords framework is designed to adapt well to the changing online environment. So what are some big things that have happened in the last 20 years? I know you guys weren't really sentient for all of that, but if you were going to say two big differences between the internet now and the internet 20 years ago, what would you come up with? Yeah?
Internet or phones.
Phones. Okay, that's significant. Mobile. I wouldn't put that as one of the big two, but that is definitely significant. I'd put that top 5 for sure. Yeah?
Online storage, online shopping.
Online shopping. Well, we had online shopping in '99. There's certainly more of it. So I'll give you that. I would put that up there, yeah? But yeah, media consumption, that's a big one. Well, what enables media consumption? What enables how come we can have streaming video now and we couldn't have it in 1999? If you wanted an internet connection in 1999, what did you have? You didn't have cable. What did you have? Broadband. If you were like the president, you had shitty ass dial-up, 33K, right? Not like this, 500 gig 5G shit we got now. You had shitty-ass 30K, and you had to wait like a full minute to download an image, okay? It sucked. That's why, right? So connection speed is a lot faster. That means that every aspect of anything you're doing in networking can happen a lot faster. The whole idea of 1999 of Google contacting a bunch of databases, pulling ads, aggregating all those ads together, comparing them to each other, displaying them on a page in some kind of attractive form, that shit was not going to happen 20 years ago, okay? That's one. That's what I put as number 2. What's the other super big thing? What's different? How many people were using the internet 20 years ago? A lot less than there are now, right? Now, basically, everybody with a credit card has internet. 1999, it was still pretty specialized, right? 1999, your grandparents probably didn't have internet. My parents didn't get it in their house until, I hesitate to even say. They might have had it 10 years ago. They were dragging their heels because they're old, okay? So, a lot more people doing a lot more shopping, and Google having the ability to display a lot better ads a lot more effectively. All that together, that's what makes AdWords work, right? It wouldn't have been a good model for 1999. It's too much work for not enough return. 2019, the cost of doing all those things go so far down, Google's making money faster than it can even, build buildings to store it in. Okay. So, Google wants to make more money maximize total revenue from selling ad space, right? There's a couple ways to do that. Number one, to charge more per unit of ad space. That sounds pretty good, right? Up to a point. And number two, prioritize ads more likely to lead to sales. So if Google can figure out which ads are getting clicked on and how often, Google can figure out, if I show this ad at this time, I can make a lot of money, right? So those two are basically the tricks. Now there's some other stuff, big picture kind of stuff. Number one, this, and I guess even to an extent number 3, okay? So if you're running an ad in the newspaper, if I want to run like a half-page ad, say I'm Target and I want to advertise a sale in the Tribune, and I want to run a half-page ad on Friday, how do I do that? I call up the newspaper, I say, okay, give me a half-page ad. And does the newspaper ask what I'm selling? No, there's a flat rate, right? You want that chunk of that page, fine, that's what you get, right? That is suboptimal lock-in, right? So for newspapers, yeah, maybe that flat rate makes sense. But for the online world, it absolutely does not. Because number one, some terms are inherently a lot more valuable than others. Number two, the general drift over time, because there are more advertisers and more eyeballs seeing the ads, the general drift is going to be upward. People are going to be willing to bid more other times. So that means allowing advertisers to bid each other. It would be as if when you called up the Tribune, you said, I want to place a half-page ad. They say, okay, what are you willing to pay for that? And you say, I don't know, $10,000. And you're like, okay, we'll take your bid. Whichever business places the highest bid, that's the one whose ad is going to run, right? That's essentially what Google does. So yeah, all those other things. The other one, this is kind of floated back and forth over time, keyword management. So there have been different times in history Google said, well, we're going to pick the keywords that your ad is shown along with. Lately, they've gone back to the model of letting the advertisers pick the keywords. So the advertisers will specify, I want to bid on these particular terms. But they've gone back and forth about that. One of the things is, sometimes if you have a lot of amateurs doing this, they're not going to be doing a very good job of picking keywords, and they might get frustrated and quit. But nowadays, there's a lot of, advertisers are generally more experienced, and there's a lot of consulting services that can help with that. Plus, there's free Google Analytics. It's not too hard to learn. Anyway, so all these things together, Google combines them together in its competitive bidding model. Basically, the advertisers try to figure out which sets of keywords make sense to show their ads along with. For example, if you're advertising bicycle sprockets, right, might make sense to do, bicycle parts, or, some kind of specific, like if you have a brand of sprocket that you're selling, you could include that as a keyword you're willing to bid on. Yeah. Okay. So a basic picture is this. Google has a database full of advertisements and another database full of search terms. Then, anytime somebody does a set of search terms, Google's going to pull out the advertisements that perform reasonably well with that set of search terms and going to allocate them to different spots all over the page. Okay? And the idea is, if a viewer clicks the ad, then number one, the advertisers pay Google. That's how Google gets the money. Google keeps all that money. Yay. And then also Google updates its allocation data. Say, oh, this ad, a bunch of people clicked on it today. I'm going to update that. This is probably an ad I might want to show more in the future. Yeah. Allocation just means figuring out where you're going to place the ads. So how you're going to allocate them over the web page full of search results. Right? So you guys know if I go to Google, I should have internet by now. What are we going to search for? I don't know. Halloween candy for sale. We see some ad. Oh, Aldi's at the top, right? So Google has figured out, okay, this is an ad that plays well. And it's pretty close, right? It's down on Cermak, so not far from here. Probably a geographical factor as well. Yeah. Oh, and here's just on sale, Amazon, whatever. So a couple other ads. So look, Amazon's still advertising with Google. How about that? All right. Okay, this all makes sense. Any questions? I do. Possibly. Remember, ad placement is a combination of what two factors? What two factors determine where an ad appears on a page? What two factors determine whether an ad gets to the best spot or not? Yeah, bid, price, that's one. What else? Well, it's always specific for a set of terms. Sort of. What's the correct technical term that includes popularity? What's the correct technical term that includes popularity and relevance? If I were going to devise a score that describes the quality of an ad, what technical term might I label it with? A quality score. How about that? All right. So yes. Okay? Okay. 2 ways to have your ad appear at the top. Okay? Best position. Number 1, be the best ad. Right? So that's essentially quality score. Mostly just means number of clicks. Okay? If you're an ad that gets clicked on a lot, that's great. That's going to be a high quality score. There are some other factors that go on along with that. But for now, let's leave it at that. Or compensate for low quality score, fewer clicks, by paying more per click. Okay? Does that make sense? I hope it does. Right? Because the net effect, Google looks at how much cash the ad is bringing in, which is basically going to be number of clicks times price per click. Yeah? If you boost one, you boost the other, right? You boost the product. Okay? Google doesn't really care that much where the ad revenue comes from. It'll show just about any ad, but more clicks can compensate for a lower bid, higher bid can compensate for fewer clicks. Okay. Good. So, we have a business case here. I would say read this. I'll make a thing. It's about a business that started using AdWords when AdWords was brand shiny new. And then over time, they cut back and stopped using it so much. Read it over the weekend. Come back. We'll talk about it Monday. It's not like a book. It's like a couple pages that I lifted from a newspaper article like from 2011. But it's, again, not directly testable, but it's a good introduction to some of the problems with AdWords and hopefully make it stick a little better. Okay? We're giving something concrete to all this stuff that maybe is kind of abstract so far. Nasty. All right. So, any other questions on AdWords? Nothing? All right. Next one, Adsense. Okay. Adsense is a customizable model for revenue generation, right? Very similar to print media models. Let's put that up. And try this again. There we go. Okay. The essential idea with AdSense, like if you call up the Tribune and say, hey, I want to run a quarter-page ad, this is basically what you're doing with AdSense. You have some page, maybe a blog article. The blogger says to Google, we need to make some money for pizza. So let's hack out some corner of the page, maybe some 6x6 sector of the page, and you can run ads in that. Okay? So the nice thing about this, again, Google can target specific ads for specific visitors to specific pages. Can't really do that with a newspaper. With a newspaper, you print up 1 million copies of the Tribune and you send the same copy to everybody in Chicagoland, basically. So a little bit different. You can do micro customization with AdSense that you can't even come close to with newspaper. So revenue model, site owner agrees to display Google's ads. Google selects and provides the ads. When viewers click the ads, the advertisers, that's who the they is, the advertisers pay Google, Google pays the site owner. Okay? I'll even make that edit here, in case it's a little unclear.
Like an ad goes to a specific type of page where you can probably click that ad more, like it's relevant to the page, or does it have to be?
Hopefully the ad is relevant, right? It's going to be as relevant as Google can make it. But if some site, suppose the site is, suppose it's a site about human sacrifice, right? It's hard to think of a lot of viable products that might be advertising along with that, right? Maybe like, I don't know, history of the Aztecs or something, I don't know, but yeah, whatever. They're going to do the best they can, right? At some point, Google might say, you know what? We don't have a lot of relevant ads for this particular page. We're still going to show something. Maybe they decide that football is the closest thing to human sacrifice we got going on these days, okay? But it is ritualized violence, and people always like that. Anyway, so that's AdSense, okay? You have a blog, you tell Google, run some ads on my blog. Google does. If somebody clicks on the ad, the advertiser pays Google. Google pays a cut of that to the blogger, typically around 40%. Now, the important thing, this solved the problem of earning revenue from free content, okay? So, the problem always was, what's the problem? Suppose you come up with a wonderful short film, right? You're a talented amateur filmmaker, and you make this wonderful little animated short film, and you post it online, and you try to charge $10 for everybody to view it. What's going to happen? Yeah, they're going to watch it after pirating, right? One person's going to pay the $10 to get it. They're going to make a copy of it. They're going to distribute it to BitTorrent everywhere, right? Yeah, so this is the thing. You want to get paid for content, but there's no real way to force, if somebody can see it, they can copy it. They can always bootleg it. This was the problem with the internet. Anything that people really wanted, that they wanted enough to pay for, somebody would copy it and make a duplicate of it somewhere else. So, everybody always understood that you would run ads along with content, right? Same as you do with broadcast TV. You don't get charged to tune into ABC or whatever, but you have to watch commercials. Every few minutes there's, please pay attention to these important messages from our sponsors. The problem is, if you can't target who's seeing it, unfocused advertising is terrible. Terrible. Let me show you what shit was back in 1999. So, let's see if I can find an old-timey banner ad. Ooh. Yeah, well, I'll show you in a second. Unfocused just means you're not targeting particular people. You're kind of showing the same ad to everybody. Banner ad. Let's see if I can find one. Yeah, okay. Looks some shit like this. Yeah. So like something like this, or like this. There'd be these big ads at the bottom of the page. Now, the one I remember doing, so you used to see these ads all the time. So it would be something like up here at the top, and it would be very eye-catching. It'd be like red and black, and so everybody was like, oh yeah, you can't help but miss that. It's like a fire engine running into your eyes. So it'd be, congrats, you are the 1 billionth visitor to our crap site. Okay? They didn't say crap site. 1 billionth to our site. Click for amazing prizes. Okay, you remember that?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah, okay, hold on. Yeah, close enough. But the problem was, number one, if you were paying attention, there'd be something down in the corner here that said, you are the 12th person to visit this page, right? It would be like, this page has been visited by 0.0000012 people, right? So you knew this was bullshit, billionth visitor. But when you click on it, I remember, I vividly remember I clicked on one of these about 20 years ago, and I said, oh, maybe I won something, let's see, right? It says, I don't know, it was like a free cell phone or something. I said, okay, we'll see what it is. So I click on it, and I go through like 10 or 15 screens where it's asking me my demographic information, right? Like, how old am I? Where did I grow up? What did I do in school? Blah, 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 blah. And about 15 pages in, I'm like, fuck this. It's never going to be done. I quit. I never clicked on a banner ad ever again, okay? So this is the problem. When I say unfocused advertising, number one, it's of limited value. Unless you're showing an ad for something that everybody likes, like M&M's or McDonald's, you're not really going to get a lot of clicks on that, okay? It's of limited value. Number two, possibly harmful in the long run. If you show enough garbage, irrelevant ads to everybody, people are going to stop looking at it altogether. They're going to, at first you go on the internet and you're like, oh, look, ads. Oh, some of those things might look interesting. Let me check that out. But if none of them ever lead anywhere good, pretty soon you stop looking. Excuse me. All right. So, for AdSense, I don't know why I always have to bounce around in this, I guess because of the display. So maybe if I turn this off, it'll work better. Okay. Anyway, for AdSense, the ad selection process is different. It's based on site content, not search terms. Why is that? Why would that make sense? What problem would happen if you tried to make AdSense run off of search terms? Yeah.
The age-old problem of just spamming a bunch of keywords on everything.
Nope, not that. Not that. That could be a way to appear higher in the search listings. But let's talk about this. Okay. AdWords, you can show ads according to search terms to appear with search results. With AdSense, this model would be much less effective. Why? Why couldn't you do that? Well, sort of, but why? I mean, it works for AdWords. Why wouldn't it work for AdSense? What's the difference?
That's not a popular term.
Okay, people are stuck a little bit. How do people get to websites? What's one way that you can get to a website? Search. What's another way? Just type in the URL, right? What's another way? You could click on a link to a site, right? What's another way? So we've covered, yeah? Yeah, you could have a bookmark, right? All those things. So, different ways to reach, say, your favorite blog. With search engine, or with a bookmark, or with knowing the URL and typing it in, or with a referral link, okay? Only the search engine actually has search terms to use, okay? If somebody clicks on a referral link or has a favorite for a site, you don't have any search terms to work with. So there's no way, in most cases, that you can actually come up with a set of search terms that you could say, oh, this ad is relevant for this page. Okay? That's the fundamental problem. So, accordingly, Google uses site content as the primary determinant of ad relevance. Okay? Basically, it tries to assess what the site is about And just like it would, match in AdWords, it would match the ad shown to the search terms. In Adsense, it matches the ad shown to the site content as far as Google can measure it. Okay? Does that make sense? Questions on that? I hope that is very understandable. Okay. So, now having said, this is what they do, but it's an imperfect system, right? Site content is a lot harder to assess than search terms. Number two, quite often users accidentally visit the wrong site, whereas users relatively rarely enter in the wrong search terms, and even if they do, Google's spell check is pretty good at catching them, okay? On the other hand, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? It just has to be profitable. As long as AdSense is profitable, Google's going to keep using it. So, AdSense, very popular with bloggers, right? People that, I have some free content, I want people to look at it, but I got to make enough money to buy pizza once a month, okay? Or promotion aggregators, things like, Priceline, for example, or Travelocity, they say, or Orbitz, they say, here's a bunch of options, I'm going to run ads along with it. Yeah.
Why is site content hard to access?
Oh, it's not hard to access, it's hard to assess, hard to measure. Right? Think about it. You have this big page with like maybe 1,000 words on it and a bunch of images. It's going to be a lot less accurate than saying, we have these 2 keywords. Yeah, it's just a lot more complicated problem. Even if Google can do it with the same accuracy, which they can't, it's going to be a lot more work to do it. Okay, so here's our AdSense diagram. Similar problem. Google has a bunch of stuff, right? Advertisers are sending ads. Google has a database of ads. Google has a database of web pages, right? And tries to figure out, this is what these web pages are about. The site owner, whoever's the blogger, he says to Google, okay, run an ad at the top, run an ad at the bottom. That's the space I'm going to give you. So Google picks the ads that appear on the web page. If a viewer clicks the ad, the advertiser pays Google, and Google gives a cut to the web page owner. Ta-da! That's where the money comes from. Okay. So, we're good. Okay. We'll do a few more slides. We'll talk about good clicks, bad clicks, and then we'll call it a day. So, your basic payment models, advertisers might pay Google under any of these circumstances. Number one, when an ad is seen. That's called pay per impression. Basically, Google pays for the eyeballs that actually see the ad. And that makes sense in the case where it's something that people aren't going to buy right away. So, for example, if it's a political ad, for example, that's a good case. So if you see an ad in the summer of 2020, it's not like you can go right out that day and vote for somebody, right? But they just want to get the word out, this is the candidate, this is what this candidate is about. We'll pay for everybody that sees the ad. So that's one model. Second one, pay when the ad is clicked. That's the most common, pay per click. Okay, so the advertiser says, you know what, I'm going to run this ad. Anytime somebody clicks on it and comes to the site and sticks around for longer than a fraction of a second, I'm going to pay for that. Okay? Last one, when a purchase happens. So pay per conversion. So that means, again, typically, you're not paying just for the click. You're saying, I'm going to pay when somebody actually buys something and I actually make some money. Then I'll pay Google. So basically the difference there, pay per conversion, there's essentially no risk for the advertiser, right? They're not going to pay unless somebody buys something. So they're pushing all the risk onto Google. So they're going to have to pay a little extra. Likewise, pay per impression, the advertiser's taking all the risk. Google isn't taking any risk. Google knows right off the bat they're going to get paid every time they show this ad. So a lot of times people pick pay per click because it's kind of in that happy medium. All right. So pay per click is the most common. Number one, it's pretty easy to track results, right? You can see how much site traffic the ad generates, and it puts some of the risk on Google. So if the advertiser, pays for a lot, if the ad doesn't generate any traffic, then the advertiser isn't going to pay anything to Google. The advertiser at least know they're getting something. Those people that visit the site, they might not buy anything, but at least they came and looked around a little bit. So there's that. Anyway, click-through rates in practice are actually really low. If it's a well-targeted search ad, right, it's something that Google's showing along with AdWords, and it's pretty clear that, it's a sensible product, it's a good match for the terms, typically you can see numbers 1 to 3%, right? Maybe a little bit on the higher end of that, but basically if you're getting 3% clicks on your ads, that's really good. For most other ads, typically much less than 1%. Think about 0.1%. So by comparison, think about when you're out just randomly looking around on web pages. How many ads did you see and click, right? You probably saw a whole bunch. How many did you click on? Probably not very many. So yeah, most people don't click on many ads. Okay, so next, good clicks versus bad clicks. So Google wants everybody involved in the advertising process to be happy, right? Wants viewers to be happy, wants advertisers, and Google wants Google to be happy as well. So how do they get happy? Well, viewers are happy if they see ads that are reasonably relevant without significantly degrading search result quality. Okay, so remember, every spot that isn't occupied by an ad on a web page, that makes it a little bit harder for the user to actually find the real search results, right? So Google doesn't want to just pack the page with like 90 ads versus one search result, because then people would stop showing up and using it. But if the ads are pretty good, and if you still get, a lot of the good search results on that first page, people aren't going to complain too much because Google's free. Advertisers, they want to pay for traffic that's likely to buy goods, right? So in the long term, what advertisers are going to do, if they see an ad that people are clicking on it, but nobody ever buys stuff and they don't think that people are buying stuff in the future, at some point they're going to quit that ad, right? They're going to stop using that set of search terms. But hopefully there are at least some search terms that they're bidding on that are actually generating valuable traffic. They're going to stick with those. And of course, Google makes more money by selecting highly relevant ads for some particular context. So if Google can pick ads that people are actually clicking on, Google makes more money as well, and then Google's happy. All right. So, ad clicks. With a little thought, you could probably think of some vulnerabilities in this model, right? So, for example, what happens if a site owner clicks on his own site's ad? What happens if unemployed blogger wants to make money for pizza and starts clicking on the ads on his own site? Right? That's problem number one. Number two, what if competitors click on advertisers' ads? Remember, because every time you click on an ad, the business is going to pay. So suppose, Walmart and Target are locked in a battle to the death, and Walmart decides to devise some script that every time it sees ads for Target, it's going to click on them and make Target pay $1. Okay? Then Target's basically going to burn through its ad budget quickly. So Google tries to distinguish between this kind of legitimate and illegitimate clicks based on factors like, number one, volume of traffic at the source. So Google knows if you have a typical, blog page and a typical click-through rate is going to be like 1 or 2% at best, and Google suddenly identifies, wow, this blog, it's getting a click-through rate of like 10 or 20%, and an absolutely ridiculous number of people are clicking on the ads, right? Google might think, you know what, that's probably bogus. Other things, time between clicks. If you're sitting at your computer and you click the ad, reload the page, click the ad again, reload the page, click the ad again, that's not really normal human behavior. Other stuff like behavior on site, if you have people that just visit the page and click the ad within a second of being there and then go away, that again, very non-human behavior, right? That's robot behavior. So, short version, any of these clicks that are deemed illegitimate, they don't earn revenue. You don't get paid for that. Okay, so Google tries to figure out the good clicks, which represent actual customers with some reasonable possibility of buying something, versus bad clicks that are obviously bogus. Okay? All right. Let's see. I think that's a good break point. We'll come back on Monday. We'll talk about APIs, maybe close out the lecture. All right, it's been a hoot.